how did you go from impeccable timing, quitting corporate, then becoming a forced early adopter to this, to being an offer and sales coach for HSPs, introverts, and rebels? What is an HSP? So welcome to another episode of Before We Hit Record with me and Tracy as she straightening up and sitting
I'm
straight.
like, oh, okay,
And
okay.
if this is the first Before You Hit Record episode that you listen to, the whole concept here is us online business folks, before we hit record to record like the typical guest expert podcast, we have these great conversations just getting to know each other. And I thought, and enough of you listeners and other people that I asked, including my wife, thought with me that what if I made a new segment called Before We Hit Record? So will this be long? Or will it be around for a year? I don't know. But right now, it's a thing. And you can expect that all of the future guests on the podcast will have 2 episodes. One where we're getting to know each other, and thus you, the listener, are getting to know both of us as we banter and have exciting fun, which I could already tell with Tracy, this episode will be pretty cool and full of random facts. We've already been chatting as I've been, as you've graciously or gracefully? Both.
Both. I'll take both. Yeah.
I'll give you both. You've let me input my data into my weekly check-in for this body transformation challenge that I entered and am doing quite well in. I should add and will add to toot my own horn. I'm quite proud of myself. But Tracy, welcome to the episode. How would you introduce yourself?
Oh, I always hate that question. A misfit, a rebel, curmudgeon.
A
Take your
sales
pick.
coach?
I mean, that's the title part, right? You said myself,
Well,
not my
yes,
job.
okay. Well,
Yes,
to be fair,
yes.
I invited you here because I found you on Instagram, and you are a sales coach, and I was thinking of the people that I do, like, consulting calls with, it seems to be a frequent question, like, "Oh, how do I improve my conversion rates on the webinar?" Or, "How do I improve, like, my close rate on a discovery call?" Sales, and I thought it would be great for you to speak to our audience, but we'll get to that in the next episode.
In the proper formal side, right?
In the proper formal side, because now we're just getting to know each other. You asked me how I found you on Instagram. Do you wanna start there?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I'm curious. Cause we have so many connections, right? And now, we're even in like a pure mastermind together. But before I was like, curious. Cause I'm not one who, tells the whole world where I am, what I'm doing. I love to think of myself as a I'm a speakeasy, not an LA nightclub, right? Like people who need me, they know how to get to me. And everybody is invited, everybody's welcome, but it's just kind of this, yeah, when you need me, you find me.
Before I talk about that, I didn't know what speakeasy was until we're in 2024, so fall of 2022 when I went to Europe to visit my sister, and then we both went to Paris, and that's where I went to like my very first speakeasy bar, and it was so cool, but it was like a restaurant. But then we had to queue up in line and we had to wait, and then we could go in through like this kitchen, and it was like down a set of stairs, and then we were in this whole another like secret spot. And I was like, and it was one of the coolest. They just had a really cool DJ, really cool drinks, and yeah. So now I know what speakeasy is.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you can get in, right? Like you're welcome. You just kind of have to know, and if you start asking around, people will tell you. There's tons of them in Las Vegas. They're in most large cities. A lot of hotels will have extra bars and places that you can go to if you ask people, right? And that's just kind of how I've always seen what I do. I'm there if you're seeking. I just don't make giant billboards of myself and all that kind of good stuff. So yes, I was very curious. I was like, how
How
did
I
how did
found
you
you.
find? Yes.
So it was part of the 100 days to 100K months challenge. Finding you wasn't part of that challenge, but one of the things that I had to do was really, really dial in on activities in my business that could generate revenue. And so for me, one of those activities is finding people to be on the podcast. And so I was on Instagram, and all I did was I figured, if I'm gonna have to DM people to like get to know people, right? Because it's weird. It feels weird and contrived. Contrived might not be the right word online when I'm talking about like sliding into someone's DMs to get to know them so they could be on the podcast. But then it comes so naturally if I'm at like a party and I want to meet people, so like I'm not just talking to myself, you know, the whole evening. So anyway, I was on Instagram and I'm like, what would be the easiest way? Like, who would talk to me? So I looked at all the people I follow and then I just started looking for people who mutually follow us. Is that the right way?
Yeah, yeah, who we have in common.
Who we have in common. Yeah, and so I think I started with Brenna McGowan, who I had collabed with. I'm like, "Well, I like her, she's cool, so let's see, like, who we have in common," and I started going down that list and, like, following and DMing, and then your name came up, and so, like, I made sure to look at your profile and see that you were like an expert in something that could also benefit my audience, so to speak. And I think at that time, well, that's how I found you. And then I think I had asked you if you wanted to do one of those Q&A video collabs, right? And then I think I was overwhelmed. And so I had also joined this Mixer Mind, really cool concept, and you were in there. And then I'm like, fine, great. Let's just have you on the podcast.
Yes, yeah, yeah, which whenever you said that for the Instagram, I started giggling to myself. Well, I mean, obviously I tell you because I'm very transparent about things. And I was like, yeah, it's a great reason to dust off my Instagram. I hadn't posted there for like I think 2 years, because I'm not against it. I just I'm very well aware that I'm not the one who needs to be doing it, right? Like I know I am the bottleneck, right? So like I have a reel in there with one of our also like mutual friends with Emily. And she's the one that did it. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And it's like, but I am a zero contributor to anything useful when it comes to like content.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at
Oh,
your
oh
Instagram
gosh.
now.
Oh
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yep. It's
Yes.
gonna happen. There you are. And I didn't notice that you didn't post for the past year, but I think
No, yeah, like yeah, that one right there with Emily, that is I mean, I guest coach in her group. I love guest coaching.
right.
It's like being the auntie of someone's, group course. It's my favorite thing. And that was I think the first or the second time I was in her group. So that was a good 2 years ago.
So you are a
Yeah, at
unicorn
least.
because
No.
Emily Regan specializes in
Yes, yes.
finding
So I
unicorn
come in and I
unicorn
talk
VAs
to
for
them about sales, right?
Gotcha. Okay. I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh,
because
you were a VA
I
before."
yeah. Yeah, because I talk to people who don't like being in the spotlight. How are they supposed to do selling? Because a lot of people think, "Oh gosh, how am I supposed to bring people into my world if I don't like saying, 'Hey, I'm over here, come into my world.'" And since that's what I live, I'm not someone who likes to say, "Hey, come over here." Yet I have clients, I have things that I do, then that's, what I get to like teach people and show people by doing. Yeah.
Wow. Can we do like the next guest expert episode on that?
Sure. Yeah, whatever you want.
Well, I mean, that's a very intriguing topic, how to attract sales, how to make sales without being like, "Hey, hey, hey, buy my stuff." Like, I don't know, pick your favorite bro marketer that everyone loves to hate on. Grant Cardone, for example.
Yes, yeah, and I use a lot of examples. I normally don't name, but I do. I very much talk about. I mean, you do you. I talk about that contrast, right? It's like how are we able to do these things in our business that we know we need to do in order to actually have a business, right? That whole idea of business versus hobby, and how do we take it from like passion to profit? Right. It's like, how do we do these things without emulating the stuff that we don't want? How are we able to be like intentional and purposeful to not accidentally copy and paste all of that shtick and all that that we don't want to bring in there? And that's that world that I live in and that I kind of geek out on.
Hey, we'll get right back to the episode in a moment. You want to make sure that you're avoiding all the mistakes with Facebook ads that could cost your business a good amount of money because your ads just aren't running like they should be. Well, you can hop on a call with me and I can look at your Facebook ads and you get to leverage my 3 years of Facebook ads management experience, optimize your account, fix it up right then and there on the call so that your ads will be running better and getting either more leads for you or making more sales for you. If you want my help, that is the artofonlinebusiness.com/ call and we can hop on Zoom together and you will learn so much as I fix your ads for you. All right, now back to the episode. Okay, all right. So tell me about that world because it's not, well, I don't think I ever have interviewed somebody with an approach like yours to sales that I'm hearing about. So, like, where did that originate from? That you are not like, hey, it's me, I'm here, I can help you. And like we were talking about before we hit record on the before we hit record episode, that like you hide your metadata and all this, which I learned about. Like, tell me more.
Yeah, and it really it does come from like my own lived experience. It comes from this idea. So I am a corporate dropout. I am someone who was like, you know what, I'm done. I've done this. I have reached these levels that I was supposed to. I didn't like it, and something that I kept seeing over and over again were these like little places where even these huge businesses just kind of kept fumbling over themselves. And as I was doing this work, I even transitioned, like quasi transitioned out of corporate into consulting, and I was a consultant for over a decade. And at one time when I was a consultant, I was what's called a turnaround consultant, which meant I went into other people's businesses and I either fixed them or I got them ready to sell.
What kind of businesses?
Various. So sometimes they were service based, sometimes they were product based, anywhere from medium to large. You know, sometimes it was just me, other times it was a team, depending on the complexity of what we were dealing with. And I enjoyed it, you know, but again, I noticed these trends. So I noticed these trends from when I was in these massive corporations of, you know, just being a regular plebeian, just kind of hanging out in this corporate world and advancing, you know, with titles and all that kind of stuff into this consultancy, and finding patterns is just it's a natural thing of mine. I love reading mysteries and doing puzzles. I'm one of those people. I started kind of putting these things together, and aside from that, I also do a lot of nonprofit work, and I was on boards, and the person I was with, he was also on boards, and you kind of have to do these networking events, and I use have to in air quotes.
I love them. You say have to.
Yes. So you are the human who actually loves to go and enjoys it and talks to the people and gets really energized. I'm the one who stands there in the corner drinking my bourbon, watching everybody. Yeah, that's me. So if you come over and talk to me, we will have a fantastic time, but we will go deep. Right. We will have like a thorough conversation about something. And there usually ends up being kind of like a handful of people that hang around me, but I don't like hummingbird around to lots of groups. Yeah. So that's just a personality trait that you can actively see in the wild, right? That you can watch how people work with all these things. But as I was doing these, and as we were like going to weddings and doing all these kind of functions where people were in the same kind of social element, I again started seeing patterns, and that had me start asking questions. And I would ask people, what jobs did they do? What were they doing currently? And then where did they start? And the people that had these kind of, who are you? What can you do for me? Okay, you can't answer this. Thanks. I'm moving on kind of attitudes. They tended to have very similar early jobs. And that tended to be in a business development, which is just a corporate word for sales. And so that had me thinking back to my corporate experience, and it had me thinking back to what, because I was still in consulting at the time. And I started to see how these businesses were treating these people. And for the most part, they're getting people fresh out of business school who are really excited, you know. They're like, this is my grown-up job. I've been doing interns, maybe not, you know, but I've been doing like all these fancy internships. And then now here I am going and working at these businesses. And they don't really understand that business development is just another name for sales. And they're excited at all these things. And they're basically treated like a number. It's like, if you don't perform, if you don't get these other people that you have zero connection with to do exactly what I want you to do for me, then I'm going to get rid of you and get somebody else.
That is an unfortunate place to be.
Exactly, right? But what that also does is that develops this sense, because this is again a foundational learning point for people. This is that like into adulthood, and these tend to be people that are 18 to 25 that are in these roles, and so now then they have to go and adult somewhere else, right? So whether they move on to another department or whether they keep growing and developing in this is that, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. If I'm to be successful, I need to emulate this. And it's like, no, you don't. And it doesn't need to keep being this way. And those are the kind of things that make me mad because I started to see these same humans do these same patterns. They would treat the wait staff certain ways. They would teach the people that they would meet at a wedding reception, at a networking event, these certain ways, you know? A lot of times when you would meet them, say 20 years later, they would start to kind of notice how they did these things wrong, or it would kind of bite them in the butt at this point. But it's like, I mean, it was learned behavior. They didn't start out this way. They adapted to it in order to survive, right? So that is a cultural problem within these corporations.
And you saw those.
Yeah, yeah, and that is very, very it's just dirty. It's just wrong. And so it's like, what can I do about it? Well, I can call it out. I can teach them. Yeah. And it's like, okay, if I can do something about it, then I'm going to do something about it. And I will pause at this point because I've been talking.
Okay. Pause. No, that's fine. I'm pretty random. So, like, my curiosity wants to know what made you quit corporate?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, at that point, I just kind of had enough, and I was working with a business that I was seeing these people at top level come in and absolutely just rail on these people that were entry level. And I was like, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable as a human. It's not acceptable as an adult. It's not acceptable as a person in a powerful position. Like none of this is okay. And again, what can I do about it, right? And so it's like, if I want to make a cultural shift, well, then I'm not going to make like an instant impact, but I can make a ripple impact. So thinking about this from a consultant standpoint, I can go back and I can teach these things. And if people know that by having me in their business, I can make these kind of fancy changes, the big number changes that they want, but on that deeper level, I'm actually doing this foundational change, then that's what I'm going to teach. And at this point, this was 2019.
Oh, like, you quit corporate and then COVID happened.
Exactly, right? I was an accidental early adopter, because I was traveling. I would leave on a Sunday and come home on a Friday, and I was like, I bet I could do a lot of this same kind of teaching, but in a recorded format. And then that would also give multiple price points, right? So I could make more impact and reach more people. I could offer a different affordability for different levels of businesses. So I could physically be there, or they could do like a digital version, et cetera, right?
Help me connect the dots, though, because one thing, you were traveling weekly for a whole week to a business to help that business increase just sales or any kind of metric?
So I would work in finance. I would work on, the money, like the finance accounting, like the money side, in operations, which is what I did. The concentration of my MBA was in operations and strategy. And then we would also work like on that front facing side of the business. So it was the back end, it was the front facing, it was all around. Whenever it was consulting, it was in every single part of the business. Yeah.
So you're invited, management is inviting you in as the third party consultant. Did that make you the bad person?
Yeah, yeah, sometimes, which is also why I enjoyed being the one who was sent, because sometimes the one who is being sent is a bad person.
My best friend in college was an auditor, for one of the Big 4 accounting firms, and he felt like the bad person when he would have to go by himself or with his team, depending on the size of the business they were auditing, and do all that sort of stuff. So you in that context, you were helping businesses transform in various different areas. I really am looking at your Instagram account. Inside, I'm chuckling because I remember asked you what an H, so it says offer and sales coach for HSP, and I asked you, and I totally forgot. What is an HSP? First question. Second question is, how did you go from impeccable timing, quitting corporate, and then becoming a forced early adopter to to being an offer and sales coach for HSPs, introverts, and rebels?
Yes. This is the power of frustration, right? So HSP is highly sensitive person. And if you think about it, this is I think about everything in terms of layers. So some people I identify as introvert extrovert. That is how you actually regain energy. Are you someone who gets energized by being around people or by being, with no one, and then that full spectrum in between? Yeah. Then on top of that, you can have different variations of insecurity, different variations of shyness, and then on top of that, you have different variations of neurodivergent, which is everything from genius to highly sensitive to ADHD to autism, like everything in between. That is anything that is technically outside of the range of norm is neurodivergent. Yeah.
Thanks for educating me because I keep seeing that word and I'm like, I need to understand what this is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is norm, not in like the colloquial norm. This is norm in terms of scientific medical version of norm, right? Like if a doctor were to give a test, there's certain parameters that they're looking for, right? Versus if like a kid is calling someone normal or not normal, yeah, that has like different connotations. So, for HSP, these are people who get overstimulated quickly. So everything can be a bit much, whether it's lights, sounds, textures, like those kind of like five senses. And so the world kind of seems a bit much. It's a bit more than it can be for other people. So you need different levels of like different ways to kind of find that places of stillness, find those things. So if you have someone who is already introverted and then has like, their own personal levels of insecurity and also have a range of neurodivergence on top of it, it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do today? I don't know. I'm just going to stay in bed. I never want to do anything. To tomorrow, I'm going to take on the world. I've got these fantastic plans. Here we go. Yeah. So a lot of times you find yourself in the world of entrepreneurship because you have then that kind of power and you found where you didn't really fit, or there was a little too much conflict if you did try to fit into like a box of like a corporate.
Okay. Was this you then?
Yeah, yeah. Not this wasn't something that I noticed until later. This was more of like a hindsight revelation, but absolutely. Yes. I mean, I did my part. I have 4 degrees. I made my way through corporate. I did my consulting. I did all this and that, right? I ticked the boxes. Um, but I also was like, yeah, I just don't care. I don't like it. It's like I never wanted a normal life.
I guess we're not leading a normal life now, but geez, 4 degrees. Which 4?
Well, one of them was an accident, but it was in international marketing.
I accidentally went to college for several years and came out with a degree. International marketing. That is not an accidental degree. That's
No,
difficult.
no, no. That one wasn't. That one.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, God, I'm so glad that this is the informal version because this is like such a tangent, and I feel like I'm monologuing. I'm sorry.
I am doing all tangents. You can feel free to cut in and put me in the hot seat if you want, but if you can't manage it, then it's just gonna be you.
I started off in like sociology and political science because patterns, right? Patterns, patterns, patterns. Um, but then I decided to do more like business stuff and finding ways to make money and enjoying like that side of stuff.
Finding ways to make money. Love it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So international marketing, and from that, I didn't want to ever feel like I got a car loan or a mortgage or wouldn't understand my retirement plans. So I really wanted to learn finance. I wanted to understand what these contracts were that were being put in front of me and all that kind of stuff. So I very intentionally took a lot of classes that were finance related. And my advisor was like, well, you take this many more and you got a degree in it. Oh, okay. So I did corporate finance. And then it was like, well, if you actually take two more, then you'll have one in accounting. So accounting was the accidental one because ledgers and spreadsheets are not fun for me. I enjoy finance because finance takes all that information and makes decisions from it. Accounting is more like accumulating all that information. Yeah. So I would rather take all that information and do something with it than be the one who like acquires all that information. So that one I would say is the accidental one. And then, like a good girl, I went and got my MBA because you should, if you're dreading the corporate world, then you should. Um, and that was when I discovered the strategy that puts everything together in operations. And I was like, oh, this is the part I've been missing. And that was the concentration that I did, like the extra classes that I took. Yeah, and that was where I really geeked out. And if you know your marketing, you know your operations, you know your finances, bam, there you go. You've got the core of every single business right there.
I guess so. And I guess I'm not counting right. I counted 5. Did you say sociology?
Oh, I didn't finish. That was where I started. I didn't actually like. That was just what got me into school. Yes, yes, yeah. So yeah, I started in those tracks for political science and sociology.
You want another tangent?
I still didn't answer your second question. Your first one was HSP. Then the other one was how did I end up with the entrepreneur side? But it's your choice.
Second question. Second question. How did you end up in the entrepreneur side?
Okay. So as I was building the course for the corporate stuff, and I still love to travel, so I was still planning on traveling, but I was just planning on doing this digital stuff. We all kind of talk, right? And everybody's like, "Oh, what's your course about? Oh, what are you doing? Oh, this and that," and I was sharing what I was making, and people were like, "This sounds amazing. Why don't you make a version for us?" I was like, "Why would I? You don't need it. But it's your own business. You don't have to deal with any of this crap. Like, you don't have a board of advisors or 200 years of history telling you what you have to do." Yeah. And then I started seeing, as you brought up, the real marketing messages and all these kind of things. And I was like, oh my God, like you are basically being told to take all this stuff that everybody hates about the corporate world and put it into your online business. And you don't have to do that. So, okay, all right, fine, I will make a version for you. And that is how I did it.
And you chose to focus on offer and sales.
Yes, that's the secret recipe. Because as you said at the top of this, people are always coming to you and saying, "I need to make more sales, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it." The big secret is that the better you know your offer, the easier it is to sell it.
Thank you. The better the offer, the easier it is to sell the offer.
The better you know your offer, the easier it is to sell it. And that's why they go hand in hand, right? But for the sake of marketing, for the sake of that glitz, if I'm like, I'm an offer coach, people are like, oh, I know how to make an offer, or oh, I love mine, or oh, I already bought this. But you're like, well, let me help you actually make money. Oh, okay, yeah, I need to do that. Okay, well, guess what, sunshine? It's the same thing.
Great. I'll take this moment to like call out not anybody in specific, but that happens sometimes as ads managers. We can get thrown under the bus because we can't just take our ads toolkit, if you will, and make an offer sell when it's like the most important thing is the quality of the offer, um, not how you wrap it up. So intriguing journey. Yeah.
It is, and it was the same thing, like, I spent 2 years learning copywriting, right? Because I was like, "If I'm going to teach sales in an online space, I need to know how it's done." So, this is me, doing my little geek out, deep dive stuff, not saying everybody in the world has to do that, it's just how I do it. And it's that classic saying, or now classic saying of good copy will never sell a bad offer, right? Not saying people out there don't do it, but that's how you end up making people mad. That's how you end up getting a bad reputation. That's how you end up getting tons of people calling you out or asking for refunds, or having all of this stuff out there. Because it's like you can glitz it up all day long. You can do every single ad trick out there to make stuff buy it, and then people are like, what is this? Right? That's what makes that bamboozled, that swindled, bait and switch sort of feelings.
We want to stay as far away from that as possible.
Exactly, exactly, right? And that's whenever it's like, no, but I tried to create this because I loved something, because I wanted to bring something of myself. I wasn't trying to do something gross. I wanted to actually come at this with integrity. What happened? And that's what I do with the clients, with the people that I come in and guest coach with all these kind of pieces. It's like they can accidentally end up in this space and they're like, wait, what happened? And it's like, that's okay. Let's just go back and let's figure this out. Right. And let's see where you copy and pasted these things into your business from other places. Yeah, because we all get emotionally, tied up in this. And we're like, oh, I don't trust myself, or I'm not sure what to do, or I'm so scared. So this expert that I just bought this thing from told me I had to do it this way. So even if I don't want to, I'm going to. So let me just do it. And then we end up with these results and we're like, wait, what? Even if it did make us a bunch of money, we still feel very disconnected from it. Or of course, when it doesn't work, we're like, wait, why didn't this work? All these kind of variations of results happen. And it all came back to not using those pieces that actually worked for us and that we understood and that matched what it was we were wanting to create.